Hello and welcome to the France 24 interview. Our guest today is Rudolph Giuliani, the former mayor of New York City. Mr. Giuliani, welcome to the France 24 interview.
Thank you for having me.
I want to talk with you about Iran. There's been a round of negotiations about Iran's nuclear program. Where do you think this is heading?
Personally, I think Iran is just biding for time. I think they're wasting everyone's time. I think while they are pretending to talk, they're not really negotiating. While they're pretending to try to set the rules for talking, I think they're moving forward with enriching uranium. And I think they want to get themselves as close to being a nuclear power as possible. And I think the die has been cast. I think there's nothing that says to me that Iran really wants to negotiate in good faith. They've had 5, 6, 7 years of opportunity to do that. Every time talks have started, they've found ways to scuttle them, to end them, to not even begin them. Now, their first set of discussions were in Baghdad. The second set of discussions were in Moscow. They couldn't have picked friendlier sites. and we can't get anywhere with even the rules of discussion.
So is the West, especially the United States, naive?
Well, I think the policy of appeasement to Iran has been a big mistake, yes. I think that President Obama came into office with the idea that he could talk to the Ayatollah, that he could talk to the mullahs. Hillary Clinton criticized him for that when she was running against him, said it was naive. She used the words naive about Barack Obama, about that policy. And, you know, sometimes policies work and sometimes they don't. I think we have to say that after 3.5 years of trying to follow this policy of talk and discussion, it's gotten nowhere, except one thing for sure, and the UN has certified this, they have now enriched uranium significantly more than they did at the beginning of all these talks. So I would say that we should give up on talks. We should get really serious about sanctions and about regime change.
But okay, let's talk about sanctions. July 1st, there will be tougher European sanctions. Will this be enough? Or will, as you just said, there be a need for regime change? And if so, how do you do this?
Well, of course there should be regime change. I mean, if we support a regime change in Egypt and Libya, Mubarak and Gaddafi were pretty bad, but not nearly as bad as the Ayatollahs, the mullahs. I mean, they didn't kill as many people. They didn't sponsor terrorism to the extent that the Ayatollah has and the mullahs have. They're a far more repressive regime than even Assad. And in fact, they're one of the few that support Assad. So if there's any consistency at all to the position of Western countries, we should be for regime change in Iran. If we were for regime change in Syria, Libya, and right now we're for regime change in Syria.
But there are different ways of supporting regime change. There's military interventions like in Iraq or in Libya, and there is, I would say, natural regime change in Tunisia or Egypt. Which way do you
Well, I think you have to start with to be supportive of it and hope that that encourages the people in Iran to act, and you hope that the people who are exiles, Iranian exiles, that will also help to support them. And we had a chance a couple of years ago with the Green Revolution, right, to do that, and we were in a period of appeasement, and we didn't support them. But maybe if the nations of the world stood up and said the same thing should happen in Iran that has happened in Egypt, Libya, and hopefully is happening in Syria, that would ignite something. Delisting the MEK would be a real step toward showing that we were serious about regime change.
The MEK being the Mujahideen al-Khalq.
Correct. That would be a step toward it. You're absolutely right. Being for regime change doesn't necessarily mean military intervention. We're for regime change in Syria, but we're not militarily intervening. It gives you a whole group of options, much more serious sanctions. It gives the people of that country more hope and sustenance for the possibility of doing it.
But there's something that's been happening, we're told by the media, more secretive operations by the United States, possibly in concert with Israel, cyber attacks in order to damage Iran's nuclear industry. So do you think this is going on, this should be going on, more of it should be done?
Well, first of all, I'm not privy to classified information, so I don't know if that's true or not. Both governments deny it, so whether it's true or not, I couldn't tell you whether it was or wasn't.
But is this a good option?
I don't know if it's a good option. I don't know I don't know the program well enough to tell you, is that a good option or not a good option? I do think that the stated position of my government should be for regime change in Iran, and we should stop the misleading, misguided notion that we can negotiate with them, because they have proven to us that they are not good faith negotiators. And the idea of a nuclear Iran is unacceptable. Iran is not a rational regime. To have nuclear weapons in the hands of the mullahs, the Ayatollah, Ahmadinejad, would be so dangerous for the region, so dangerous for the world.
But if you say, okay, we don't talk to you anymore, they'll continue developing.
Well, not if sanctions become so oppressive and so difficult that helps to also fuel a movement toward regime change. Look, that's what happened in South Africa, right? Sanctions. People didn't negotiate with the apartheid regime of South Africa. We stopped all negotiations with them. We cut them off, and we imposed sanctions. And now, fortunately, we've ended that.
I want to get to the MEK.
Sure.
It is listed by the United States as a foreign terrorist organization. There was recently a court ruling telling the State Department it had to decide by October 1st to justify it, keeping the organization on that list. What's your view on what should be done?
Well, my view is it should be delisted. And of course, the court went further than saying that the State Department has to decide in 4 months. The court said if the State Department doesn't decide in 4 months, the court will delist them. The court itself will take them off the list. Of course, that would just follow what the UK has done and what the European Union has done. The European Union has delisted the MEK. The UK has delisted the MEK. Only countries left that list them are the United States and Iran, right? Which is very, very strange. In essence, what they are is a regime that wants to overthrow the government of Iran. Well, that would make the people in Egypt who overthrew Mubarak terrorists. That would make the people in Syria who were attempting to overthrow Assad terrorists. It would make the people in Libya who overthrew Gaddafi terrorists.
So for you, there's nothing violent or terrorist about them?
They're freedom fighters. They're seeking freedom for their country. They're on our side. We should be on their side. I think the EU has recognized that. The UK has recognized that. I think most Americans have recognized that. 130 members of the United States.
Why not the Obama administration?
Because I think, for the same reason I told you before, because I think they are clinging stubbornly to this idea of negotiation. And they feel that this will interfere with their negotiations with the Iranian regime. President Obama came into office with the misguided idea that he could negotiate with them. He has now had an opportunity to do that for 3.5 years. It has utterly failed. And I think his State Department is having a hard time coming to grips with ultimate failure. I mean, his policy hasn't worked. Best thing for him in the United States would be for him to recognize that and now switch to a new policy, which would be sanctions, isolation, regime change, essentially what worked in South Africa.
Right now, you're participating in MEK meetings as a U.S. national. Does this make you an outlaw?
No, it doesn't at all. First of all, the people who sponsor us are independent of MEK.
They're linked
completely,
to it, right?
But people have a right to have their opinions. The United States has free speech. I have a right to have my opinions. The people I'm associated with are 2 or 3 of the former heads of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, members of both the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, former head of the Democratic Party, Ed Rendell. 130 members of my Congress have signed letters agreeing completely with what we're doing. In fact, members of Congress have appeared with us. So the position that I have has very, very broad support in the United States. In fact, it probably has more support than the position that the State Department is clinging to.
So you're not afraid of problems?
No, I am very much feel supported by the American notion of free speech. Right? I have a right to my opinion. They have a right to their opinion, and we have a right to voice it.
I want to get quickly also to Syria. What should be done? Senator McCain has advocated U.S. airstrikes. People are dying. What should be done in addition to encouraging?
I think we're getting very close to. We may have to do what we did in Eastern Europe, you know, in the late 1990s. We're getting close to a humanitarian crisis, like justified the UN intervention in Libya. This may actually be worse than what was going on in Libya. I mean, just yesterday, they struck down a Turkish aircraft They've been killing children, killing people. Assad seems to be totally out of control. You know, for the United States, this isn't, we don't know what will follow Assad. I mean, it's hard to believe it would be worse. But the mere fact that we get rid of Assad doesn't mean things get better in Syria for the United States, from point of our position. But they certainly will get better for the people of Syria. So on Syria, I don't have the knowledge and the in-depth research that I've done on the issue of Iran. So I can't tell you exactly what we should do. But I think the time is coming close where some form of military intervention by the UN, by NATO probably more likely, since Turkey is a NATO member. Turkey may ask for NATO's help. After all, they've had one of their planes now shot down by the Syrians.
Quick question on the Republican race. I see you're smiling. Does it mean you're optimistic? Mitt Romney actually upset.
I'm always optimistic. I'm always optimistic. I'm a Republican. Of course, I'm very supportive of Mitt Romney. I've endorsed him, and I believe there'd be a big difference for my country and the economy of my country if Mitt Romney is the president. I think we'll have a booming economy next year by straightening out the mess that Barack Obama has made of our economy. But I'm also cognizant of the fact that we're a very, very closely divided country. You look at all the polls right now, it's virtually tied, 50-50. So this is going to be an election.
What will be the tiebreaker?
I think the state of the economy. I think that how people view the economy and who has a better chance of fixing it will decide it. And I think that's why Romney will win, because his whole background has been economics. His whole background has been success. He gets attacked by President Obama for being too successful. I mean, he's trying to isolate Romney as a sort of rich man, or the way I look at it, Romney's been a successful man. If he could have the same kind of success for my country that he's had for his companies, we'd be in great shape.
Okay, Rudolph Giuliani, thank you very much for coming on the France 24 interview. See you next time. And thank you for watching this edition of The Interview here. Stay tuned for more news.